Hello everyone, I'm Rich Lamont. Welcome back to the channel. This is your first time here, welcome. So this will be part 2 of the champion video. Hope you guys enjoyed the first part. If you haven't seen the first part, go back and watch that, and that'll get you caught up to where we are now. In the meantime, let's get started on part 2. Alright, next is the wood duck feathers. So to get these to stay back to back is relatively difficult. They curve out quite a bit, and they can be a real pain in the butt. So one of the easiest things to do to start with is start working on flattening out that rachis a little bit up front. The back is, well, that's pliable enough, you can work with it. It's this front that being so stiff. And you want to measure out where you want it to sit and how you want it to sit. Doesn't really show in Kelson's book how much, but I'm willing to bet that it's probably like that is going to be my guess. It looks like the wood duck sits just over the butt. Now, anything you strip away, try to gently save. And then you want to get rid of some of this bottom stuff here. I'm going to say about that much. A little more. Like that. So we're going to take that and match it to the other feather, which we're going to do the same thing with our thumb right along the rachis. Next comes the next problem with wood duck, is that once you get down to less material in the wing, in the feather rather, the more it wants to flip around and invert on you. So right here is your tie-in point. You want to flatten those with your pliers. Take your flat nose pliers. And you go right over that spot. See how it immediately wanted to roll? It's always going to want to roll on you, so you have to feel around until you catch that vertical edge. The vertical edge is quite difficult to grab. Once you've got it kind of flat, you might need to twist the rackus a little bit to kind of get it to conform a little bit more. And then do the same thing with the other one. Once you've got them flattened right by the tie-in point, line up your two feathers. That little Z-bend there, right by the head, is kind of important. So pretty much it just takes some bending with the flat nose pliers. haven't used a lot of wax much. Actually, I haven't used any wax at all yet on this fly. I'm going to go ahead and try and put a little bit on there to hold things in place a little better. Just working on these feathers just a little bit more to try and get them to sit a little bit lower. Yeah, that's better. I think I like that better. Hugs the body more. Hopefully the wing will help push it down just a little bit more. But for now, I'm pretty happy with that. So we're going to go ahead and put some clear Solire on it from Vineyard. That'll just help keep everything in place. And start mounting things like the wing. Alright, we're going to let that set up for a little bit, and I'll be back as soon as it's dry. Okay, so for the wing, the instructions call for strips of golden pheasant and silver pheasant. Now, I don't have any silver pheasant, but I do have Amherst, so I'm going to try using some Amherst. See how that sits on here. Shorten those up. I just gotta switch the golden and the Amherst on this one. Go. Flip and do the two on the back side. What makes this part hard is that golden pheasant tail and Amherst tail are two of the hardest fibers to get to marry together. We can adjust those a little bit later also. And now we'll tie on the main wing, which I feel like it might be a little too big for this fly. Let's put it up there. Let's put it up there and take a look. Maybe not. Okay. I'd like to get these separated more, but I can work on that in a little bit. The wing is about the size and shape that I want it. I'm not doing a fully closed tail on this fly. Oh no. See right here? Has a fold. I don't like that. So we take the wing back off and we'll just reset everything. The wing is also supposed to have silver pheasant in it, but I just don't have the silver pheasant, so that's right, I actually cut the GP topping. And the GP tail in the wing. Yep. Alright, I gotta add a new section to the wing. I'll be right back. Alright, so even though the GP was a little bit short on the opposite side due to being cut by the thread, I did just notice that the Corey Bustard is also short, and I don't have anything longer at the moment. Not for that backside. So I'm going to try to shorten the wing just a little bit. And see if we can get a tie-in with the length that I've got. It's not bad. There's a little bit of a fold in the back, but I think the cheek might cover that. Oh, careful. Alright. I actually do like that. As I said, I'm not going to be connecting the toppings. My topping for this one, don't do that. Okay. Topping for this one is going to end right at the tip of the wing, and I wanted it to be a little bit shorter than where I have the tail. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this. Let's have a quick look at it. Yeah, I like that. A little bit of wood duck poking through the top there. I'll fix up these little fibers in the tail here in just a bit. We'll pull out that seal's fur. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of Finalizing to that. And that'll keep the wing in place. While we move on to the rest. That has a lot of J in the throat. I don't know, it might be a little too much, but I don't think it looks terrible. Alright, we'll let that dry up, and we'll continue on with the topping and sides. So, you guys might notice I made a couple changes here. We've got the wing all dry, but I was making some adjustments, and I decided that there was still too much of the kind of non-married wispy feathers right here, so I wound up redoing that. And I pulled the wing off, and I wound up actually pulling some of that bottom part of the wood duck feather off. And we'll make all these other adjustments after we've got everything finished. So now that we've got the wing on, we're going to go ahead and add the teal. So the teal, we want to kind of match the wing. And you want to have the rackus attached. That was a wrong piece. There we go. You leave the rackus attached so that way when you tie it on, the feathers stay in the orientation they were. I'm sorry, the fibers stay in the orientation that they were on the feather. And there's these little strips down here that we put in earlier. Those will have to get obviously pulled out. Next we want to do the roof, which is the bronze mallard. I want to make this roof a little bit on the thinner side. I don't want it to be too terribly pronounced. Keep that teal a little low. Of course. That teal is pretty good where I want it. This one doesn't quite want to stay in place, so we're going to go ahead and just add a little bit of Solire to that just to keep them from moving. Don't need much, just a little bit on there. Once that dries, we'll put the roof on. We'll get the sides on, the topping, and the horns. And while that dries, since the wing is already all dry and set, we can kind of work with the other stuff a little bit. Pull those out. Shape the wing a little more. Tuck that wood duck. Overall, so far, I'm pretty happy with that. I love the shape. I love the coloration. I really love the body and the throat. I got a feeling the head's going to be a little on the big side. Probably larger than I want, but we'll see. Alright, so now we've got the teal all set in place. Next is to get the mallard roof tied in. So we're using some bronze mallard. And what we'll do is very similar to the teal. We're going to leave the rack as attached. Let's see. So first I'm going to size up what length mallard I want. And I'd like it to be a little bit longer so it kind of extends past the teal a little bit. So right here in the middle I think looks good. And just because we're not using this and we're clipping this away, set that aside. You can use that for smaller flies. So now we'll take the mallard feather again, size it up. So the barbs from the right side feather are the ones we want to use for the nearest facing side of the fly. Next we'll strip away all of the fluff from the one side of the feather, leaving just the long bronze fibers. Then we'll determine how much we want. Think about, I don't want too thick of a roof on this one, so I'm just going to go ahead and clip that rackus and keep that attached. And that'll be what we use for our roof. Go ahead and lay that on the fly. And we can tie that in. Of course, trying to avoid the mallard and teal marrying. Try and get that roof to sit a little bit lower. As you can see there on the top of that roof, there's kind of a fiber out of place there. So we'll go ahead and we'll just marry that back up and reset this again. Make sure you have the curve that you like to match that wing. There we are. And we can make some adjustments with that teal and the roof here in just a little bit. Keep them separated. And then we'll do the same thing with the opposite side. We'll just do this really quick, strip away those other side. There we go. And then we have the cheeks, which are Cotinga, but I'm going to use Kingfisher. So we're going to strip away the fluff from the base of the feather and lay that right on the side here. I'm going to try to double it up a little bit to really brighten it. Same on the opposite side. Is it better to use less thread wraps? Yes. The less you use, the better. Okay, so we're going to go ahead with a little bit more Solire. And then we'll go ahead with the topping and horns, and we will be finished. Nice thing about Solire is it soaks in and hardens. Doesn't necessarily build up too terribly bad like a lot of head cements. We'll let that dry, and then we'll get the rest put together. All right, that should be just about set and dry. So now we're going to take the topping. So this is the one that I've selected. I actually have two. I haven't decided. I might do a double topping on this. I just want to do a quick, a little bit of an adjustment here. I have one unruly fiber on the GP in the wing. I've decided I'm going to remove it. Alright, so for the topping, I started to shape it a little bit. Now remember, the topping is part of the wing. It's not a separate entity. It's not a separate piece. Even though a lot of modern instruction and recipes list the topping separately, if you look at a lot of the recipes from, say, Kelson, if you look through his book, you'll notice that a topping is part of the wing. So when doing this and placing your topping, you want to make sure the tip of your topping lines up with the very tip of your wing. Having it overhang like that, that's too much, or being too short. You want it to fit just right. So when you look at it here, and then just use your thumb to slowly mold that rachis on the topping. Then you want to strip this little, there's usually a little tiny fuzzy feather on the back side, right there. Shine a little more light on this. This little feather on the back here. Get rid of that. That's it. I'm going to get rid of some of these little guys, these little fibers there. And kink it right there. Let's see how that looks. I think that looks good. So now we can start trimming away all this excess here. Alright, now let's try and fit it on there a little bit better. Without all that stuff in the way, we should be able to set it right on there. Just a hair long. So being just a hair long, we'll just move up from where I had it before, right here, the bend. And these little fibers down here, what we'll do is we'll clip these away. And then any of those ones that are kind of sticking up in the front, kind of like those ones that were sticking up right here, you can strip those away too. And if you have trouble with it flipping and rolling, and you can always take your flat nose pliers like this, flatten that spot out a little bit at the tie-in point. And then rebend it. Okay, I like that. As I said, I do have a second topping. Let's stick it on there just to see. I don't know how I feel about that double topping. Let me take a quick look at it here. You know, I do think I like it, but I got to get it to sit right. Everything has to move up, and the wood duck needs to come down a shade. I do like that. I don't know if I like that wood duck sticking out through the top like that though. You know what? I'm going to leave that. Let's move this into frame a little better. There we go. All right, let's try the other topping once more. See what it looks like with just the one topping. Matter of fact, I almost prefer this topping better. Okay. I'm going to set this and throw a head on it. And show this one will be complete. Alright, now that the topping is set, we can clip that off. Just have a couple horns to put on. I'd like some longer ones if possible. Alright, now that the topping is set, I clipped off the remainder. Now let's get some horns on. The horns are blue and gold macaw. So we'll just take a couple of fibers, one from each side of the macaw feather. And you always want to have it oriented so that the blue is on the upper side. That'll force the feather to curve right up against the wing. Actually, I like that length. And then you want to match that length on the opposite side. Shorten this one just a touch. It's really up to you how you want your horns to be laid down on the fly. They could be a steeper angle. Some people like the bug antennas that come up over the top. I like mine to kind of crisscross farther back on the wing. Just like that. A little more salire. At this point, yeah, it's building up a bit of a head on it. I have a feeling this head was going to be big anyways. But we'll see how the outcome is. Alright. Horns are dry. Let's just hitch this over a little bit. Now we're going to work on the head. So first, I'm going to go ahead and pinch or cut off the rest of these, pinching everything else with your left fingers, trying very hard not to let them move at all. And when using your razor blade, you want to be very careful not to cut the eye. In this instance, one of my favorite tools actually to use is the cauterizer. You can actually get in here and just burn off any remaining pieces of feather. Sometimes these cauterizers, you'll get stuff on the tip and it just won't work quite as well. Take your time with it, you're not in a hurry. So next, I'll take some wax. Don't need much, just have a small piece. I'll just use like a lighter and just barely heat the side of it. Just enough to soften that up. That's kind of a lot, but you'll wrap that around the head. And do that a few times. Pretty much until you've got the head covered, or at least most of the thread covered. And you can always melt some out of the way afterwards. Now for a fly that you're going to fish, you want to tie that off and have that done properly. But for this fly being a framed fly, we're just going to let the wax hold that thread in place. Now using our bodkin, we'll heat that up with the lighter and use that slowly and gently to melt the wax that's on the head. And then you can start forming it and shaping it. Yeah, like I said, this head was going to be a little big. Kind of got away from me a little bit. I'm going to try to reduce it a little bit here in just a moment. Possibly the worst head I've made, but we'll fix that. You could use a cauterizer on this to heat it up, and it does work rather well, but it ruins the cautery tip, and you'll be replacing them a lot more often. A heated needle works just fine. Clear some of that wax off of the bodkin. Having a candle on your desk works very, very well for this also. Instead of having to reheat it with a lighter, you can just use a candle. And just use your fingernails to farm it the rest of the way. Apologize for this, but this head is terrible. It's way too big. And then the last thing we'll use is some black Salire just to give it that nice sheen. And then last but not least, we'll go through and we'll pick out the hackle. Or excuse me, we'll pick out the seals for a little bit. To do that, all you're doing is just using your needle and pulling some of it down into the hackle. And there you have it. This is Kelson's Champion. Not too bad for the first fly back. Next video we're going to do the Namsen, which is also from Kelson. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you got any questions, you got comments, please leave them in the comments section. If you've got any recommendations, things that I could have done better, I definitely could have done that better. You know, share some suggestions, any ideas on future flies to dress. I'm always open for suggestions, and I do take requests. Other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your night or day, depending on where you are in the world. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.